So Justin, if you're working with an employee that is considering opening up a side business while they're working primarily for another company, what are some considerations?
So considerations for somebody doing a side hustle. So I think I've got three. The first one is your side hustle should be something that's its own thing. You can't use your employer's, gravitas to bolster it, right? You have to keep it separate. Like that's just you, and it shouldn't be competitive. It shouldn't have any negative impact on your employer. And you want to check and make sure that you know it's something you're allowed to do. The second one, though, would be to make sure if you're working on sensitive projects or specific secret things for your employer, that has to stay with your employer. But you have to be very careful that whatever you're doing should be different enough that these things aren't going to bleed over each other. And the third one would be to make sure that you don't ever use company tools or company equipment or company software, and I guess that's company time as well. You can talk a bit more about that, but I would say make sure don't be sending emails from your company email. It's so easy. I mean, you just need to separate everything and really think of it as its own business that it is, or your own side hustle. What do you think from an employment perspective?
Yeah, so on the employer side, I've seen everything from, you can't moonlight, for example, you can't have any side businesses, you have to work strictly for us, to you need to disclose if you're working for another business to kind of evaluate the things that you just spoke about, Justin. When I work with business owners, I try and find some level of balance between protecting the employer interests, making sure the employee is working for the employer while on the employer's clock and on their dime, and not using the employer's resources to further some side business. But by the same token, if you have someone that, for example, maybe works 9 to 5 for you and then goes and teaches at night, or does Uber, or works, in a restaurant, something totally unrelated, I think that's okay. Okay.
Right.
And
I,
I think,
I feel like if you were to clamp down too hard on that, you would actually encourage people to leave. I mean, if people feel like they're really handcuffed, I think that might be a psychological problem.
yeah. So, I think the point is striking some balance, having the governance, in terms of a policy, having the oversight to make sure employees are not abusing that privilege. And then obviously enforcement if an employee is, in fact, let's say, working for the side business while on the employer's time, enforcing a disciplinary policy, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but being open as well to other opportunities that are unrelated, ones that maybe would not be usurping corporate opportunities, which is a legal term. So something, non-competitive, within the industry, but having that balance, that makes
I'll
sense.
flip you around. It does. I'll flip you around. So, as an employment lawyer, what things should the employee with the side hustle be thinking about?
Yeah, I think you touched on them, Justin. I think that they need to be mindful that they're being employed by someone, and they're to be respectful of their employer's time, resources, and the fact that they're being compensated. So not to use that employer's time to further the interests of a side business. Okay, so I think that's key, just being mindful of that. And then secondly, really just separating the two, also being mindful of the fact that your employer has a business, you're learning certain things while being employed. And if you're going to do something on the side, that's fine. Okay, so long as your employer's okay with it. But make sure it's really separate and apart, and you're not using a lot of what you're learning from the employer for this side business,
That's
because it
super,
could
super
be
important.
something that exposes the employee, actually, usurping a corporate opportunity or something like that. So obviously there's a lot more to consider, and these are really good topics to, have further consultation with attorneys about, just to make sure that you are striking that balance, both from the employee side and the employer side.